care about this, right? They actually do give a fuck about like the Epstein files, and they actually do want to see that information be released. And then when Joe Rogan doesn't even cover this, when he doesn't even talk about this obvious hypocrisy.
What's going on, you guys? Today we have the Vanguard slamming Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is becoming part of the establishment and losing followers. The Vanguard is calling him out.
I think I'm, exaggerating or being hyperbolic, but it does seem like we have the first sign that Joe Rogan might be souring on Elon Musk. And I think, this comes in a broader context. There's been a couple articles written about this. Joe Rogan fans are done with his Elon Musk obsession. We've seen this in the pages of the Daily Beast. Joe Rogan fans are starting to hate how much he loves Elon Musk. The podcast juggernaut shot to fame for lively discussions of largely non-political topics. But that seems to have changed since Trump won the election. A Reddit community with 1.5 million subscribers dedicated to discussing all things Rogan has grown exasperated with the host constantly fawning over Musk, who he described as a super genius in a recent episode. Rogan has mentioned Musk by name on all but 2 of the 14 episodes released since Trump's inauguration, according to Politico. The billionaire Doge chief has also appeared on the show 5 times. The way he fawns over Elon is really off-putting, one Reddit comment reads. It's literally hard to watch. Another fan said Joe and his anti-elite billionaire friends are becoming the swamp they've always hated. And that's interesting, right? I know there's a lot of liberals on Reddit, a lot of just kind of normies on Reddit in general. But I do think it's worth noting that his subreddit has basically gone from a fan subreddit to an anti-Joe Rogan liberal subreddit. Like, I'm not even kidding, guys. Look at this subreddit. Almost every single post that gets popular on here is critical of the right, critical of Trump, Elon, and Joe Rogan himself. And a lot of people just seem fed up with this, right? So here's one that says, average Joe Rogan listener, release the Epstein list and expose the Democrats. Trump's new sycophant FBI director, first order of business. And then it shows this post about a whistleblower who's actually come forward alleging that the FBI is actively destroying evidence related to Jeffrey Epstein. And what I think this speaks to is that a lot of people in Joe Rogan's audience, they actually do care about this.
And yeah, it appears that, Joe Rogan, one of his core values was in the past, what makes a good story, but also what is the truth. He would bring people on that he wanted to get down to the truth. He wanted to get an honest answer from people. That was more or less the what attracted people. That was one of his values. And now it just seems like he's bought out, and people that were once attracted to that value, were still attracted to that value, don't see it in him.
This stuff, they might be kind of ignorant, or they might get tricked into voting for right wingers sometimes, and they might not be as passionate about defending trans people in sports as we are, for example, but they do care about this, right? They actually do give a fuck about like the Epstein files, and they actually do want to see that information be released. And then when Joe Rogan doesn't even cover this, when he doesn't even talk about this obvious hypocrisy, let alone the fact that Donald Trump himself was an Epstein associate, they're like, well, this isn't exactly why I signed up. This isn't exactly why I got on board with this podcast and this vibe in the first place. And you see this, as the dominant kind of post on the whole subreddit, which I think is interesting, and which might explain this clip from a few days ago where Joe Rogan did offer I guess you could say some critical words about the hyperbolic nature of Elon Musk. This might be the first time he's actually criticized the guy on his podcast since the election of Donald Trump. Do you want to take a look?
Oh yeah.
Now they're talking about Social Security.
Yeah.
And that people are receiving Social Security that are 150 years old. But I don't think that is the reality as it's being explained by people who understand COBOL, the language, and this computer programming language that they use is ancient, right? Which is kind of crazy that they're still using that, right?
It's the government. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
So some guy who understands it was explaining that if certain factors aren't taken into consideration, or certain things aren't entered in, like date of birth, or when there's certain things,
or date of death, or,
right? But it doesn't even necessarily mean that all these people are receiving checks,
right? Right. They're just listed on the files.
Right.
And it doesn't mean money.
Oh, well, and this is a spook. This guy's
Again,
a fucking former CIA agent.
Elon need to screenshot that and then send it out as a tweet or whatever we call X nowadays. And then suddenly you've got, a couple million people going, oh my God, we're paying dead people. Well,
right. That's the.
And if you don't believe this vid, go watch any Joe Rogan experience in the past, few months, and it has been nothing but sucking up to Trump, sucking up to Elon, and playing clear favorites with, oh, these guys are my friends. These guys are, of course, they couldn't do nothing wrong. I think that's more or less where Joe Rogan got caught with the blind side. He's a good dude. Dudes are, they might see one of their friends doing some BS, and sometimes, that will happen to where you don't call out the other person because they're your friend. You say, you know what, I've done bad things like this in the past. It just so happens that his friend is in charge of everything in America right now, in charge of billions and billions of people, and could probably serve. Joe Rogan could probably serve as a better person, as a better friend, not being a yes man.
The problem with being hyperbolic.
Wow. Well, yeah, he's such a little bitch too. He's so cucked. He won't even come out and criticize him. Yeah, for people who are, Joe Rogan hates the deep state. That guy that he's fucking interviewing is an ex-spook, and there's no such thing as an ex-spook. So you're just talking to a fucking CIA propagandist right there. And to go back a little further to your Reddit comment, Gavin, about how his Reddit has basically turned into an anti-Rogan subreddit, bro. I think we gotta give a round of applause to our boy Kyle Kulinski. Our man Kyle Kulinski is huge on Reddit. That's my boy. I will give him all of the flowers. He is ginormous on Reddit, and people love him and they trust him. And he has been going to fucking war with Joe Rogan. Sometimes people who make content, it just a line in the sand gets drawn, and you have to just fucking get the horns ready, and you just start grounding your foot in the ground, and you're just mean and nasty, and you just got to charge, right? And we've done that at the Young Turks Network, and our boy Kyle's done that at the Joe Rogan Experience. And you know what? He's got him. He's got him fucking dead to rights. You know what I mean? And people are pissed off. And I think that Kyle's videos are getting to Joe Rogan. He's seeing them. I bet you he's probably watched a couple of them. And the meat riding, as Kyle puts it, the cum guzzling, the fucking ass licking, I don't think Joe Rogan loves that. And I don't think he loves it given the fact that he knows that Kyle's right. And you know what I mean? And I think it stings a little bit more when you have a guy that used to kiss your ass that's now hates you so much that he's willing to fucking, and I don't mean to Kyle kissed his ass, but if you watch Kyle's first experience with Joe Rogan, it's like our first experience with Kyle, right?
Oh,
you're so overwhelmed that you can't believe you're getting to talk to somebody who inspired you so much and influenced you so much, right? You're like a kid in a candy store. So to have him just burn the bridge so bad.
And most definitely Kyle Kulinski is playing a big part in tearing down Joe Rogan. And really just providing a safe haven for people that see through the lies, that see that, hey, maybe this guy is starting to, maybe this idea of letting your friends off the hook, like how Joe Rogan is letting Elon Musk off the hook, maybe it's not the best thing in the world to do. Maybe it doesn't make you a better person. Maybe it can have some type of backfire. And Kyle Kulinski is really showing it's like, hey, dude, you sort of, gave up your idea on the truth just so that you don't hurt your friends' feelings, and it's really coming at a big cost.
I think it is starting to get to Rogan, and I think certainly it's starting to get to Rogan's audience. And one thing I have to remind myself, Gavin, is you and I used to be Joe Rogan's audience. That's how far he's fallen. Obviously, for the last 5 or 6 years, we haven't really been in that boat. But when I was an early Joe Rogan head, I got into it in 2016, right? That would have been when I was full on a Joe Rogan head.
Yeah, before it was really about politics even.
It wasn't about politics at all, man. It was almost never about politics. And you know what's crazy? When it was about politics, it was about why aren't we doing anything about climate change? It was oh my God, have you guys not been paying attention to the glaciers that are melting? Let's have a scientist on to talk about that. Let's have a person on to talk about all these different things that are going on in the world that people don't understand, and let's elucidate them. Let's talk about operations.
So there we have it, you guys. We have the Vanguard tearing Joe Rogan apart. Sort of like, how could you do this? You have completely turned your back on the fans, Joe Rogan. And yeah, it's pretty obvious to see that he's been bought out by the establishment. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. It's another day in the progressive way.